History remembers the names of kings and conquerors, but what about those who shaped the world in silence? Think of the countless figures who walked the earth thousands of years ago, heroes who saved civilizations, villains who brought empires to their knees, yet their names have vanished from the pages of time. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 45 forgotten figures from the ancient world. People whose stories have been buried under the weight of centuries, but whose legacies still echo in the world we live in. These are the unsung heroes and the overlooked villains, the ones who fought, schemed, and dreamed in the shadows. Their tales aren't just relics of the past, they're windows into the complexities of human nature, the rise and fall of empires, and the passage of time itself. So join me as we uncover the mysteries of these forgotten lives, piecing together the fragments of history to reveal the drama, the intrigue, and the lessons they left behind. This is more than a journey through the ancient world. It's a chance to rediscover the humanity hidden in the dust of history. In the shadow of legends like Odysseus and Achilles, one name often slips through the cracks of history: Palamedes, the unsung genius of the Trojan War. While his more famous counterparts bask in the glory of epic tales, it was Palamedes who brought ingenuity and innovation to the battlefield. Known as the mastermind behind the invention of dice, a tool used not just for games but for decision-making and strategy, he also played a pivotal role in the creation of the Greek alphabet. Imagine the impact of such contributions, turning chaos into order, giving soldiers a way to communicate, and even laying the groundwork for literature itself. Yet for all his brilliance, Palamedes met a tragic end, a victim of betrayal by those he once called allies. Framed by Odysseus, who resented his intellect and feared his influence, Palamedes was accused of treason and executed. His story is a stark reminder that heroism in the ancient world wasn't always about glory and honor. Sometimes it was about the quiet, uncelebrated work that shaped civilizations. What makes Palamedes' tale so compelling is how it reflects the complexities of human ambition and jealousy. His downfall wasn't just a personal tragedy, it was a loss for the Greek forces who could have benefited greatly from his strategic mind. As we move forward, his story sets the stage for exploring other forgotten figures whose legacies, though overshadowed by more famous names, are no less fascinating. From heroes betrayed to villains misunderstood, the ancient world is full of stories waiting to be rediscovered. From the shadows of ancient Assyria emerges a figure shrouded in equal parts admiration and dread: Queen Semiramis. Known as much for her brilliance as for her ruthlessness, Semiramis has long been a subject of fascination, her story weaving together threads of myth and history in ways that challenge our understanding of the past. Some say she was a visionary ruler, others a cunning manipulator, but all agree her impact was undeniable. Take, for instance, the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon, a wonder of the ancient world often attributed to her ambition. Historians still debate whether she truly built them, but the fact that her name is so deeply tied to such a marvel speaks volumes about her enduring legacy. Her rise to power was anything but ordinary. Born into obscurity, Semiramis climbed the ranks through a combination of intelligence, charm, and sheer determination. Some accounts suggest she even orchestrated the death of her own husband, King Ninus, to seize the throne. Whether fact or fiction, these tales paint a portrait of a woman unafraid to bend the rules or break them to achieve her goals. And yet, her reign wasn't just about power, it was also marked by bold innovations in architecture, governance, and warfare. She expanded her empire, built formidable fortresses, and left a mark that would echo through the ages. But here's where things get murky. Much of what we know about Semiramis comes from ancient historians like Herodotus and Diodorus Siculus, who often blended fact with folklore. Was she a real queen whose deeds were exaggerated over time, or a mythical figure crafted to embody the ideals and fears of her era? This blending of truth and legend is part of what makes her so captivating. She's a symbol of ambition and complexity, a reminder that history is rarely black and white. Semiramis stands at the crossroads of myth and reality, her story a tantalizing puzzle that invites us to question how we remember the past. As we turn to the next forgotten hero or villain, her legacy serves as a powerful reminder. The line between history and legend is often as much about who tells the story as it is about what actually happened. Among the forgotten heroes of the ancient world, few figures shine as brightly or as tragically as Hypatia of Alexandria. Born in the late 4th century, Hypatia was a mathematician, philosopher, and teacher whose brilliance made her a beacon of intellectual freedom in a time of growing religious and political unrest. In an era when women were rarely seen in academic circles, Hypatia not only earned respect but became one of the most celebrated thinkers of her time. Her lectures on mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy drew students from across the Roman Empire, eager to learn from a mind that seemed to defy the limits of her age and gender. Hypatia's contributions to science and philosophy were groundbreaking. She wrote commentaries on complex works like Diophantus's Arithmetica and Ptolemy's Almagest, helping to preserve and expand upon the mathematical and astronomical knowledge of the ancient world. But her legacy wasn't just in her writings, it was in her unwavering commitment to reason and inquiry. In a society increasingly torn by religious conflict, Hypatia stood as a symbol of intellectual freedom, advocating for the pursuit of knowledge over dogma. Her voice was a rare one, reminding us that the quest for understanding is timeless. Yet her story takes a dark turn. As tensions between Christians, pagans, and political factions boiled over in Alexandria, Hypatia found herself caught in the crossfire. Her association with the city's pagan elite made her a target, and in the year 415, she met a horrific end at the hands of a mob. Her death was not just a personal tragedy, but a stark reminder of how fragile knowledge can be in times of turmoil. When Hypatia was silenced, the world lost not only a brilliant mind, but also a powerful advocate for reason and learning. Her legacy, though, endures. Hypatia's life and death remind us that the pursuit of knowledge is often fraught with challenges, yet it's a pursuit worth defending. Her story also serves as a poignant reflection on the fragility of intellectual freedom, especially in periods of societal upheaval. As we move forward, her unwavering dedication to truth and reason continues to inspire, urging us to protect the light of knowledge even in the darkest of times. When we think of ancient conquerors, names like Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar often come to mind. But long before their empires rose, a lesser-known figure reshaped the ancient world through sheer force and cunning strategy: Tiglath III. Rising to power in the 8th century BC, he inherited an Assyrian empire that was struggling to maintain its dominance. Yet, within a few short years, he transformed it into a formidable superpower through a combination of ruthless military campaigns and groundbreaking administrative reforms. Tiglath-Pileser didn't just expand his empire, he revolutionized how empires were run. He was one of the first rulers to implement a system of provincial governance, dividing conquered territories into manageable districts overseen by loyal governors. This innovative approach allowed him to maintain tighter control over his vast lands, ensuring stability and efficiency in a way that previous rulers had never achieved. But it wasn't just his administrative genius that set him apart. His military tactics were equally groundbreaking. He pioneered the use of mass deportations, forcibly relocating entire populations to weaken resistance and integrate diverse cultures into his empire. While controversial, this strategy proved devastatingly effective in quelling rebellions and solidifying his rule. Yet, despite his monumental impact, Tiglath-Piles's legacy often fades into the shadows of history. Later conquerors like Nebuchadnezzar or Cyrus the Great tend to overshadow his achievements, but without his innovations, the empires that followed might never have reached the heights they did. His story is a reminder that behind every great empire, there are forgotten figures who laid the groundwork for future glory, and Tiglath-Pileser wasn't alone in this. Across the ancient world, there were other conquerors whose names have been lost to time, overshadowed by the giants of history. Their stories, like his, reveal the complex tapestry of ambition, strategy, and power that shaped the ancient world, a theme we'll explore further as we uncover more of these forgotten heroes and villains. Now, let's turn our attention to one of the most enigmatic figures of the ancient world, Nitocris, the legendary queen of Babylon. Her story is a fascinating blend of cunning, vengeance, and mystery, leaving historians and storytellers alike captivated for centuries. But who was Nitocris, and why does her tale continue to intrigue us? According to ancient accounts, Nitocris was a queen who ruled Babylon with both intelligence and ruthlessness. One of the most famous tales about her revolves around her brother's murder. After her brother, the king, was killed by his enemies, Nitocris devised a plan so cunning it could rival any modern-day thriller. She invited the conspirators to a grand banquet, supposedly to honor her brother's memory. But this was no ordinary feast, it was a trap. Unbeknownst to her guests, she had secretly redirected a river to flow directly beneath the banquet hall. As the revelry reached its peak, she unleashed the waters, drowning everyone inside. In one swift act, she avenged her brother and eliminated his killers in a way that was as shocking as it was brilliant. But Nitocris's story doesn't end there. After this bold act of revenge, she seemingly vanished from history. Some accounts suggest she disappeared into obscurity, while others claim she took her own life to avoid retribution. Her ultimate fate remains a mystery, adding to the allure of her legend. What makes Nitocris particularly fascinating is how her story straddles the line between history and myth. While some historians debate whether she was a real historical figure or a fictional character created to embody the ideals of justice and cunning, her tale reflects a recurring theme in ancient narratives, the blending of fact and folklore to create a larger-than-life figure. Her story also offers a glimpse into how ancient societies viewed power, revenge, and the role of women in leadership. Nitocris is portrayed as both a protector and a strategist, defying the expectations of her time. Whether she was a real queen or a symbolic figure, her legend endures as a testament to the power of storytelling in shaping our understanding of the past. And that's the beauty of Nitocris. She isn't just a historical figure, she's a symbol of the way history and myth intertwine, leaving us with stories that continue to resonate through the ages. Thebes, a city often overshadowed by the military might of Sparta and the cultural prestige of Athens, produced one of the most revolutionary military minds of the ancient world, Epaminondas. This Theban general didn't just challenge the status quo of Greek warfare, he shattered it. At a time when Sparta's dominance seemed unshakable, Epaminondas redefined what it meant to fight and win. His story is a masterclass in strategy, innovation, and sheer determination. Epaminondas's rise to prominence came at a critical moment in Theban history. Thebes had long been subjugated by Sparta, its people humiliated and its independence stifled. But Epaminondas saw an opportunity to turn the tide. His most famous achievement came at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC, where he faced the seemingly invincible Spartan army. Instead of relying on traditional phalanx tactics, Epaminondas introduced a bold new formation. He concentrated his strongest forces on the left flank, stacking them 50 shields deep, a move that overwhelmed the Spartan right and shattered their elite warriors. This wasn't just a victory, it was a seismic shift in Greek warfare, proving that Sparta's military machine was not invincible. But Epaminondas didn't stop there. His campaigns into the Peloponnese weakened Sparta's grip on the region, liberating cities like Messene and giving rise to a new era of Theban influence. He didn't just win battles, he redefined the political landscape of Greece. His innovations extended beyond the battlefield, too. He championed a new kind of leadership, one that prioritized the strength of the collective over the glory of the individual. This philosophy resonated deeply in a world dominated by city-states constantly vying for power. Yet, despite his brilliance, Epaminondas' legacy was soon overshadowed by the meteoric rise of Macedon under Philip II and Alexander the Great. The military strategies he pioneered, deep phalanx formations, flanking maneuvers, and psychological warfare, were refined and expanded by the Macedonians, who would go on to dominate the ancient world. It's a bittersweet irony that the very tactics Epaminondas perfected became the tools of a new empire, one that would eclipse Thebes and its brief moment of glory. Epaminondas' story reminds us that history is often written by the victors, but it doesn't diminish the impact of those who paved the way. His contributions to warfare and his role in reshaping Greek politics were monumental, even if they were eventually overshadowed. And as we turn our attention to the next chapter of ancient history, we'll see how the seeds he planted grew into a legacy that would shape the world for centuries to come. Dionysius I, the Tyrant of Syracuse, is a figure who embodies the complex duality of power in the ancient world. Rising to prominence in the late 5th century BC, Dionysius was a man of contradictions, a brilliant military strategist and a ruthless ruler, a patron of the arts and a paranoid dictator. His story is one of ambition, ingenuity, and fear, a testament to how power can both elevate and corrupt. At the height of his reign, Dionysius transformed Syracuse into one of the most formidable city-states in the Mediterranean. His military campaigns were legendary, marked by bold tactics and relentless ambition. He expanded Syracuse's territory, securing dominance over much of Sicily, and even launching daring raids along the Italian coast. But his success came at a cost. Dionysius ruled with an iron fist, crushing dissent and eliminating rivals with brutal efficiency. His paranoia was so profound that he reportedly dug a trench around his bed and slept with a moat to protect himself from assassins, a chilling symbol of the fear that haunted even the most powerful. Yet for all his ruthlessness, Dionysius was also a man of culture. He surrounded himself with poets, philosophers, and artists, including the famed playwright Aeschylus. His court became a hub of intellectual and artistic activity, a strange juxtaposition to the violence that defined his rule. This duality raises an intriguing question. How could a man so steeped in bloodshed also foster such creativity? Perhaps it was his way of legitimizing his rule, or maybe it reveals a deeper, more human longing for beauty and meaning even in the midst of chaos. Dionysius's reign forces us to confront the darker side of power in the ancient world. His story isn't just about conquest and control, it's a cautionary tale about the psychological toll of absolute authority. And while his legacy is undeniably complex, it reminds us that history is rarely black and white. Even tyrants can leave behind moments of brilliance, and even the most feared rulers are shaped by their own vulnerabilities. Dionysius I may have been a tyrant, but his life offers a fascinating glimpse into the many faces of power, both its grandeur and its fragility. Now let's shift our gaze to ancient Mesopotamia, a cradle of civilization where history and myth intertwine. Here we meet Enheduanna, a figure whose name might not be as familiar as Homer or Shakespeare, but whose legacy is just as profound. Enheduanna holds the extraordinary title of the world's first known author, a high priestess who lived over 4,000 years ago. Imagine that 4 millennia before modern literature, a woman was already crafting words that would echo through time. Her role wasn't just ceremonial. As the daughter of Sargon of Akkad, one of Mesopotamia's most powerful kings, Enheduanna bridged the divine and the earthly. She served as the high priestess of the moon god Nanna in the city of a position that placed her at the heart of spiritual and political life. But what truly sets her apart are the works she left behind: hymns, prayers, and poems that reveal not only her devotion but also her mastery of language and storytelling. One of her most famous works, The Exaltation of Inanna, is a passionate ode to the goddess of love and war, blending raw emotion with vivid imagery. It's a piece that feels remarkably modern, even by today's standards. Through her writings, Enheduanna provides a rare window into the spiritual and literary world of ancient Mesopotamia. Her hymns weren't just religious texts, they were artistic expressions that captured the struggles, hopes, and fears of her people. She wrote about exile, power, and the search for divine favor, themes that resonate across cultures and centuries. It's striking to think how her work, etched into clay tablets, survived the passage of time when so much else from her era has been lost to history. What's even more remarkable is how Enheduanna's influence extended far beyond her lifetime. Her poetic style and themes laid the groundwork for later literary traditions, inspiring generations of writers who followed. Her ability to weave personal emotion with universal truths set a precedent for storytelling that continues to shape how we express ourselves today. In many ways, she was a pioneer, not just as a writer but as a voice for the human experience. As we reflect on Enheduanna's contributions, it's impossible not to marvel at how her words have endured. She reminds us that even in the ancient world, literature was a powerful tool, one that could bridge gaps between the divine and the mortal, the past and the present. And as we move forward, her story invites us to consider how the written word has always been a cornerstone of civilization, shaping how we understand ourselves and the world around us. Now, let's turn our attention to a figure whose name often gets overshadowed by her more famous Egyptian counterpart, Cleopatra Thea, the Seleucid queen whose life was a masterclass in political survival and ambition. While she may not have the same pop culture recognition as Cleopatra Roman 7, her story is no less gripping or consequential. Born into a world where power was a dangerous game, Cleopatra Thea navigated the treacherous waters of Hellenistic politics with a combination of sharp wit, strategic marriages, and an unyielding will to protect her dynasty. Cleopatra Thea's life was shaped by the alliances she forged through marriage, a common tool in the ancient world for securing power. She was married not once, not twice, but 3 times, each union carefully orchestrated to strengthen her family's grip on the Seleucid Empire. Her first marriage to Alexander Ballas was a political move to unite rival factions, but when his reign crumbled, she quickly pivoted to Demetrius Roman II, her second husband. This wasn't just about personal survival, it was about ensuring the stability of her kingdom. Yet, even that union wasn't enough to shield her from the constant threats of rebellion and assassination. Her third marriage to Antiochus Roman 7 marked another chapter in her relentless quest to maintain control, but it also highlighted the precariousness of her position. Each marriage was a calculated risk, a testament to her ability to adapt and endure in a world dominated by men. But Cleopatra Thea wasn't just a pawn in the games of kings, she was a player in her own right. After the death of Antiochus Roman 7, she took on the role of regent for her son, Antiochus Roman 8, effectively ruling the empire herself. Her reign was marked by both cunning and ruthlessness. She understood the importance of projecting strength, even when it meant making brutal decisions to eliminate rivals. Yet her story also reveals the immense challenges faced by women in ancient politics. Every move she made was scrutinized, every decision questioned, simply because she was a woman wielding power in a male-dominated world. The tragic end of her reign serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of power in the ancient world. After years of political maneuvering, Cleopatra Thea's relationship with her son soured, leading to her eventual downfall. It's said that she was forced to drink poison, a bitter end for a queen who had fought so fiercely to protect her legacy. Her life was a testament to the extraordinary resilience and resourcefulness required of women in positions of power during her time, but it also highlights the immense sacrifices they were forced to make. Cleopatra Thea's story isn't just a tale of ambition and intrigue, it's a window into the struggles faced by women in ancient politics. Her ability to navigate a world that constantly sought to undermine her is a testament to her strength and intelligence. And while her name may not be as widely remembered as others, her legacy is a powerful reminder of the often overlooked women who shaped history through their courage and determination. Imagine living in a world without accurate timekeeping, where the hours of the day blur together and the concept of punctuality is lost to the whims of the sun. Now picture this same world transformed by a single man's ingenuity, a man whose name has faded into obscurity despite his groundbreaking contributions. Meet Ctesibius of Alexandria, the unsung genius of the ancient world. Born in the 3rd century BC, Ctesibius was not just an engineer, he was a visionary whose inventions laid the groundwork for technologies we still rely on today. His most famous creation, the water clock or clepsydra, was a marvel of precision, using the steady flow of water to measure time with unprecedented accuracy. But his brilliance didn't stop there. Ctesibius also pioneered hydraulic systems, harnessing the power of water to create everything from musical instruments to automated devices. His work was so advanced that it influenced later inventors for centuries, yet his name rarely appears in the spotlight of history. Why is it that someone so influential could be so easily forgotten? Part of the answer lies in the nature of innovation itself. Many of Ctesibius's creations were so seamlessly integrated into daily life that they became almost invisible, taken for granted by those who used them. And while later engineers like Hero of Alexandria built upon his ideas, Ctesibius's role as the original pioneer was often overshadowed, yet his legacy is undeniable. Without his contributions, the development of modern engineering and technology might have taken a very different path. So, the next time you glance at a clock or marvel at the efficiency of a hydraulic system, take a moment to remember Ctesibius. His story reminds us that history is not just shaped by kings and conquerors, but also by the quiet brilliance of inventors who dared to dream beyond their time. And as we reflect on the role of inventors in shaping our world, let's turn our attention to another forgotten figure whose creativity left an indelible mark on history. Now let's step into the world of Sargon of Akkad, a figure whose name echoes through the corridors of ancient history as the founder of the world's first true empire. His story is one of ambition, strategy, and a touch of mystery that has captivated historians for centuries. Born in obscurity, Sargon rose from humble beginnings. Legend says he was placed in a basket and set adrift on a river, much like the biblical Moses, to become a ruler who reshaped the world as it was known. But how did this unlikely figure ascend to such heights, and what made his empire so groundbreaking for its time? Sargon's rise to power began in the city-state of Kish, where he served as a cupbearer to the king. But destiny had other plans. Through cunning and determination, he overthrew his master and seized control, setting the stage for a series of military campaigns that would expand his influence far beyond the borders of Mesopotamia. His conquests weren't just about accumulating land. They were about creating a new kind of political entity, an empire. Unlike the loosely connected city-states that came before, Sargon's Akkadian Empire was centralized with a unified administration, a standing army, and a culture that blended the traditions of the Sumerians and Akkadians. This was a revolutionary concept, one that laid the foundation for every empire that followed. But Sargon's story isn't just about power and conquest, it's also shrouded in myth. Ancient texts describe his birth as miraculous, claiming he was saved by the gods and destined for greatness. These tales, whether true or embellished, served a purpose. They legitimized his rule and reinforced the idea that his empire was divinely ordained. And while we may never know the full truth of his origins, what we do know is that Sargon's reign marked a turning point in human history. He showed the world what was possible when ambition met organization, when vision met action. What makes Sargon's legacy so enduring isn't just the scale of his empire, but the blueprint he left behind. He introduced the idea of a centralized state with standardized weights, measures, and even a common language to unite his diverse subjects. These innovations weren't just practical, they were visionary. They set the stage for future empires from the Babylonians to the Persians, and even influenced the way we think about governance today. Sargon of Akkad wasn't just a king, he was a pioneer, a man who dared to dream of a world united under a single banner, and in doing so, he changed the course of history forever. In the annals of ancient history, few names shine as brightly or as defiantly as Tomaris, the indomitable queen of the Massagetae. Imagine a ruler so fierce, so unyielding, that she not only stood against one of the most powerful conquerors of her time, but also emerged victorious. This is the story of Tomaris, the warrior queen who brought down Cyrus the Great, the founder of the mighty Persian Empire. Tomaris led the Massagetae, a nomadic people known for their ferocity and skill in battle in what is now Central Asia. When Cyrus set his sights on her kingdom, he underestimated her. He tried to lure her into a trap, offering a false alliance and even proposing marriage. But Tomaris was no fool. She saw through his schemes and met his army head-on in a brutal clash that would go down in history. Her forces, hardened by years of nomadic warfare, outmaneuvered and overwhelmed the Persians. The battle ended with Cyrus's death, and Tomaris famously filled a wineskin with his blood, declaring that he had quenched his thirst for blood in life. Now let him drink his fill in death. Her victory wasn't just a military triumph, it was a statement. Tomaris embodied the strength and resilience of a leader who refused to bow to an empire. Her story challenges the often male-dominated narratives of ancient warfare, reminding us that women like her were not just participants but formidable strategists and leaders in their own right. As we reflect on Tomaris's legacy, it's worth considering how many other women throughout history have shaped the course of warfare, often without the recognition they deserve. Their stories, like hers, are a testament to the untold power and influence of women in a world that frequently tried to silence them. Now, let's turn our attention to one of ancient Athens' most fascinating figures, a man whose name is often overshadowed by the city's later democratic heroes, Pisistratus. Though history remembers him as a tyrant, his story is far more nuanced than that single label suggests. Pisistratus rose to power not through brute force alone, but by winning the hearts of the Athenian people. Known for his populist policies, he championed the needs of the lower classes, redistributing land to poor farmers and offering loans to struggling citizens. These actions earned him widespread support, but they also made him a target for the city's aristocracy, who saw him as a threat to their power. Pisistratus' journey to dominance was far from straightforward. In fact, he was exiled not once but twice, only to return each time with greater determination. His first attempt at seizing power ended in failure, and he was forced to flee Athens. Yet he didn't give up. Years later, he staged a dramatic comeback, rolling into the city in a chariot alongside a woman dressed as the goddess Athena, a clever ploy to convince the people that the gods themselves favored his rule. It worked. For a time, Athens embraced him as their leader, but political rivals soon forced him into exile once again. What makes Pisistratus truly remarkable, however, isn't just his resilience or his political cunning. It's the lasting legacy he left behind. During his rule, he transformed Athens into a cultural powerhouse, commissioning grand public works, fostering the arts, and laying the groundwork for the city's golden age. He also played a pivotal role in shaping Athenian democracy, even if his methods were far from democratic. By centralizing power and weakening the aristocracy, he inadvertently created a system where the voices of ordinary citizens could eventually rise to the forefront. Yet, the story of Pisistratus also raises important questions about the nature of tyranny in the ancient world. Was he truly a tyrant in the modern sense, or was he a pragmatic leader who used his authority to benefit the people? His reign challenges us to rethink the simplistic labels we often apply to historical figures. After all, history is rarely black and white, and Pisistratus is a perfect example of how power, ambition, and legacy can intertwine in unexpected ways. Now, let's set sail with one of history's most enigmatic figures, Hanno the Navigator. This Carthaginian explorer, whose exploits are shrouded in both awe and mystery, embarked on a daring voyage along the African coast around 500 BC, a time when the world was still largely uncharted. Hanno's journey wasn't just about discovery, it was a testament to human curiosity and the relentless drive to push beyond the known. But who was Hanno, and what drove him to venture into the unknown? Hanno's voyage was no ordinary expedition. Commanding a fleet of 60 ships and carrying thousands of settlers, he sailed beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, into the vast Atlantic. His mission was twofold: to establish new trading colonies and to explore the western coast of Africa. But this wasn't a leisurely cruise. The journey was fraught with challenges, from treacherous waters to hostile encounters with local tribes. Ancient records, likely based on Hanno's own accounts, describe towering volcanic eruptions, dense jungles, and even encounters with what some believe were gorillas. Creatures so unfamiliar to the Carthaginians that they called them hairy people. Yet, for all his achievements, Hanno's story is riddled with mysteries. The exact extent of his voyage remains debated. Did he reach as far as modern-day Sierra Leone, or did he venture even further south? The details of his journey, preserved in a fragmented text known as the Periplus of Hanno, offer tantalizing clues but leave much to interpretation. Some scholars suggest that Hanno's accounts of fiery mountains and strange creatures might have been exaggerated or misunderstood, while others argue they were vivid descriptions of real phenomena. What's clear, though, is that Hanno's journey was a groundbreaking feat, one that expanded the horizons of the ancient world. Hanno's legacy isn't just about the places he discovered, it's about the spirit of exploration itself. In an era when maps were blank and the oceans were endless, figures like Hanno embodied the courage to venture into the unknown, driven by a thirst for knowledge and a desire to connect distant worlds. His story reminds us that exploration isn't just about reaching new lands, it's about confronting the unknown and reshaping our understanding of the world. As we reflect on Hanno's journey, we're reminded of the countless other explorers who dared to chart uncharted waters, each leaving behind a legacy of discovery and wonder. Their stories, like Hanno's, are threads in the tapestry of human history, woven together by the timeless desire to explore, to learn, and to connect. And as we move forward, we'll uncover more of these forgotten heroes and villains, each with their own unique tales to tell. Lucius Cornelius Sulla was a man who defied the very foundations of the Roman Republic, a general whose ambition and ruthlessness left an indelible mark on history. Born into a declining patrician family, Sulla rose through the ranks not by lineage but by sheer force of will and military genius. His story is one of triumphs and tragedies, a tale that exposes the fragile balance of power within a republic and the dangers of unchecked ambition. Sulla first gained prominence during the Social War, a conflict between Rome and its Italian allies. His strategic brilliance and ability to inspire loyalty among his troops earned him widespread acclaim. But it was his audacious march on Rome in 88 B.C. that truly set him apart. When political rivals stripped him of a military command he believed was rightfully his, Sulla did the unthinkable. He turned his armies toward the heart of the Republic itself. For the first time in Roman history, a general led his legions into the city, shattering a centuries-old taboo and setting a dangerous precedent. This act of defiance was just the beginning. After securing his position, Sulla embarked on a series of military campaigns, most notably against King Mithridates of Pontus. His victories abroad solidified his reputation as one of Rome's greatest generals, but it was his return to the city that would cement his legacy, or perhaps his infamy. In 82 B.C., Sulla seized control of Rome once more, this time as dictator. His proscriptions, a brutal system of naming enemies of the state, resulted in the execution or exile of thousands. Property was confiscated, and the Republic's political landscape was reshaped to concentrate power in the hands of the Senate and ultimately Sulla himself. Yet, even as he wielded absolute authority, Sulla's actions reveal a paradox. He introduced sweeping reforms aimed at restoring the Republic's stability, including measures to curb the power of tribunes and strengthen the Senate. But these reforms, while well-intentioned, only deepened the fractures within Roman society. Sulla's dictatorship exposed the vulnerabilities of republican institutions, showing how easily they could be manipulated by those with enough ambition and military might. When Sulla retired from public life in 79 B.C., he left behind a republic teetering on the edge of collapse. His legacy is a cautionary tale, a reminder of how the very mechanisms designed to safeguard freedom can be twisted to serve the ambitions of a single individual. Sulla's life forces us to ask, can a republic survive when its leaders place personal power above the common good? His story resonates even today, a stark lesson in the fragility of democratic institutions and the enduring struggle to balance ambition with accountability. While names like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle dominate the history of philosophy, there's one figure whose ideas laid the groundwork for Western thought but remains largely forgotten: Anaximander. Born in the 6th century BCE in ancient Greece, Anaximander was a bold thinker who dared to question the nature of the universe in ways that were revolutionary for his time. Unlike his contemporaries, who often attributed natural phenomena to the whims of gods, Anaximander sought rational, scientific explanations for the world around him. He proposed that the universe originated from an infinite, boundless substance he called the Aperon, a concept that defied the simplistic explanations of his era. This idea alone was a radical departure from myth and marked the beginning of a more systematic approach to understanding existence. But Anaximander's brilliance didn't stop there. He was among the first to suggest that life on Earth evolved from simpler forms, a notion that eerily foreshadowed modern evolutionary theory. He even created one of the earliest known maps of the world, challenging the limits of human knowledge and exploration. Despite these groundbreaking contributions, Anaximander's legacy often fades into the background, overshadowed by the more famous philosophers who came after him. Yet his ideas influenced giants like Aristotle and shaped the trajectory of Western philosophy and science. So why is he so overlooked today? Part of the answer lies in the fragmentary nature of his surviving works. Unlike Plato or Aristotle, whose writings were preserved and widely studied, much of Anaximander's work has been lost to time. What we know of him comes from second-hand accounts, leaving his brilliance scattered and harder to piece together. But even in these fragments, his genius shines through, reminding us that history is often written by those who come later, not always by those who laid the first stones. As we reflect on Anaximander's contributions, it's impossible not to marvel at how his ideas sparked a chain reaction in ancient philosophy. From his concept of the apeiron to his early musings on evolution, he set the stage for centuries of inquiry and debate. And while his name may not be as widely recognized, his influence is woven into the fabric of how we understand the world today. This evolution of thought, from Anaximander to the philosophers who followed, shows just how interconnected and dynamic the history of ideas truly is. Now, let's turn our attention to one of history's most fascinating figures, Zenobia, the warrior queen of Palmyra. Born into a world dominated by the Roman Empire, Zenobia didn't just accept the status quo. She defied it, carving out a place for herself and her people in the annals of history. But who was she, and how did a queen from the deserts of Syria rise to challenge the might of Rome? Zenobia's story begins in the 3rd century, during a time when the Roman Empire was stretched thin, grappling with internal strife and external threats. Palmyra, a wealthy trading hub in the Syrian desert, was a Roman client state, but Zenobia had grander ambitions. After the death of her husband, Odenathus, who had already begun to assert Palmyra's independence, Zenobia took the reins. She wasn't content to rule in the shadow of Rome. Instead, she envisioned an empire of her own, one that could rival the greatest powers of the ancient world. Her military campaigns were nothing short of daring. Zenobia expanded her territory with remarkable speed, conquering Egypt, parts of Asia Minor, and even challenging Roman authority in the eastern provinces. Her forces were disciplined, her strategies bold, and her leadership inspired loyalty among her troops. But Zenobia wasn't just a warrior, she was a patron of culture and learning. Under her rule, Palmyra became a center of intellectual and artistic achievement, blending Greek, Roman, and Eastern influences into a unique and vibrant culture. Yet, for all her successes, Zenobia's rise was met with fierce resistance. The Roman Emperor Aurelian, determined to restore the empire's dominance, launched a campaign against her. Despite her tactical brilliance, Zenobia's forces were eventually overwhelmed. The details of her fate remain shrouded in mystery. Some accounts suggest she was captured and paraded through Rome in golden chains, while others claim she was allowed to live out her days in exile. Whatever the truth, her legacy endures as a symbol of defiance and resilience. Zenobia's story isn't just about one woman's ambition. It's a testament to the enduring spirit of those who dare to challenge the giants of their time. Her rise and fall remind us that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the pursuit of independence and cultural identity can leave an indelible mark on history. Through her, we glimpse the complexities of ancient empires, their power, their fragility, and the extraordinary individuals who shaped their destinies. Long before the age of modern engineering, there was a man whose brilliant mind laid the foundation for some of the most groundbreaking technologies we use today. Meet Hero of Alexandria, an ancient inventor and mathematician whose work was centuries ahead of its time. Born in the 1st century CE, Hero was a pioneer in the fields of mechanics and mathematics, crafting inventions that would seem almost magical to his contemporaries. Yet, despite his incredible contributions, his name often slips through the cracks of history, a forgotten genius whose ideas were far ahead of their time. One of Hero's most famous creations was the aeolipile, a device often called the world's first steam engine. Picture this, a hollow sphere mounted on a pivot with nozzles protruding from its sides. When heated, steam would escape through the nozzles, causing the sphere to spin rapidly. It was a simple yet revolutionary concept, a glimpse into the potential of harnessing steam power, an idea that wouldn't fully take hold until the Industrial Revolution, nearly 2 millennia later. The Aeolipile wasn't just a marvel of engineering. It was a testament to Hero's ability to envision possibilities that others couldn't even imagine. But Hero's genius didn't stop there. He was also a master of mechanics, creating automated devices that seemed to defy logic. Among his inventions were automatic temple doors that appeared to open on their own, powered by hidden systems of weights and pulleys. He even designed a self-filling wine cup, using clever principles of hydraulics to create a seemingly magical effect. These inventions weren't just novelties. They demonstrated a deep understanding of physics and engineering principles that were remarkably advanced for his era. Beyond his inventions, Hero made significant contributions to mathematics, particularly in the study of geometry and measurement. His work on calculating the areas and volumes of complex shapes was groundbreaking, providing tools that would later influence scholars in the Islamic Golden Age and beyond. Yet, despite his profound impact, Hero's name is rarely mentioned alongside other great minds of antiquity. Why is that? Perhaps it's because his inventions were seen as curiosities rather than practical tools during his time, or maybe it's simply the passage of time that has obscured his legacy. Whatever the reason, Hero of Alexandria stands as a testament to the enduring power of human curiosity and ingenuity. As we reflect on Hero's legacy, it's impossible not to marvel at how his work bridges the ancient world and our modern age. His inventions and ideas were a spark, a glimpse into the potential of science and innovation to transform the world. And while his name may not be as widely recognized as it should be, his influence lives on in the machines and technologies we use every day. Science and innovation have always been intertwined, and Hero's story reminds us that even the most overlooked minds can shape the course of history. Chandragupta Maurya stands as one of history's most remarkable yet often overlooked conquerors, a man whose ambition and strategic brilliance reshaped the political landscape of ancient India. Born into humble beginnings, Chandragupta's rise to power is a tale of resilience, cunning, and the transformative power of mentorship. At the heart of his story is his alliance with Chanakya, a brilliant political strategist and philosopher whose guidance would prove instrumental in Chandragupta's ascent. Together, they forged an empire that would become one of the largest and most influential in the ancient world. Chandragupta's journey began in the turbulent aftermath of Alexander the Great's invasion of the Indian subcontinent. The region was fractured, with small kingdoms and republics vying for control. Sensing an opportunity, Chanakya saw in Chandragupta the potential to unite these disparate states under a single banner. This partnership was more than just a meeting of minds. It was a fusion of raw ambition and calculated strategy. Chanakya's teachings, later compiled in the Arthashastra, a treatise on statecraft and economics, provided the intellectual framework for Chandragupta's conquest. One of Chandragupta's most significant achievements was his victory over the Nanda Empire, a powerful dynasty that ruled much of northern India. With Chanakya's guidance, Chandragupta employed a combination of military might and political maneuvering to topple the Nandas. This triumph marked the birth of the Mauryan Empire, a vast realm that stretched from the Indus River in the west to the Bay of Bengal in the east. But Chandragupta's ambitions didn't stop there. He continued to expand his empire, eventually clashing with Seleucus I Nicator, one of Alexander's former generals, in a series of conflicts that ended in a diplomatic marriage and the cession of territories to Chandragupta. What makes Chandragupta's story so fascinating is not just his military prowess, but also his ability to govern. The Mauryan Empire was a marvel of ancient administration, with a centralized bureaucracy, an efficient tax system, and a network of spies that kept the emperor informed of every development within his realm. Chandragupta's reign laid the groundwork for his grandson, Ashoka the Great, to further expand and stabilize the empire. Yet, despite his monumental achievements, Chandragupta's legacy often remains overshadowed by later figures in Indian history. His life also raises intriguing questions about the nature of power and the role of mentorship in shaping history. How did a young man from modest origins become one of history's greatest conquerors? What can we learn from the dynamic between Chandragupta and Chanakya about the interplay of ambition and wisdom? And how did the Mauryan Empire's governance model influence later Indian states? Chandragupta's story is a reminder that history is not just shaped by the actions of individuals, but by the relationships and ideas that drive them forward. His legacy, though often forgotten, continues to echo through the annals of time, a testament to the enduring power of vision and strategy. Now, let's turn our attention to one of the most formidable and controversial figures in Roman history, Agrippina the Younger. Born into the Julio-Claudian dynasty, Agrippina was no stranger to power. She was the daughter of the celebrated general Germanicus and the great-granddaughter of Augustus himself. But Agrippina wasn't content to simply bask in the glory of her lineage. She had her own ambitions, and she pursued them with a ruthlessness that would leave an indelible mark on Roman history. Agrippina's life was a masterclass in political maneuvering. She married not once but 3 times, each union strategically calculated to elevate her status and influence. Her third marriage to her uncle Emperor Claudius was particularly pivotal. Through this alliance, Agrippina secured the throne for her son, Nero, positioning him as Claudius's heir. But her ambitions didn't stop there. She wielded significant power behind the scenes, effectively co-ruling the empire during Nero's early years. Some even called her the true ruler of Rome during this time. Yet, Agrippina's story is as much about tragedy as it is about triumph. Her relationship with Nero, once a bond of mutual ambition, deteriorated into a deadly power struggle. As Nero grew older, he resented his mother's control and sought to assert his independence. The tension between them escalated until it reached a breaking point. In a chilling act of betrayal, Nero orchestrated Agrippina's murder, marking the end of her reign and her life. What makes Agrippina so fascinating is not just her rise to power, but the way her story reflects the brutal realities of imperial Rome. In a world where loyalty was fragile and ambition could be deadly, Agrippina navigated the treacherous waters of Roman politics with unmatched cunning. Her life serves as a stark reminder of the lengths to which people would go to secure power, and the price they often paid for it. As we reflect on Agrippina's legacy, it's impossible not to consider the broader dynamics of imperial Rome. The Julio-Claudian dynasty was a world of shifting alliances, ruthless ambition, and constant peril. It was a place where even the most powerful figures could fall from grace in an instant. Agrippina's story is just one thread in this intricate tapestry, but it's a thread that reveals so much about the nature of power and the human cost of ambition. And speaking of power dynamics, our next journey takes us to another corner of the ancient world where a different kind of hero, or perhaps anti-hero, emerged. But more on that soon. For now, Agrippina's tale reminds us that history is rarely black and white. Behind every throne, there's a story of struggle, sacrifice, and sometimes betrayal. From the shadows of history emerges a voice that has captivated minds for centuries. A voice that speaks of love, longing, and the beauty of life, Sappho of Lesbos. Often called the 10th Muse, Sappho was one of the most celebrated poets of the ancient world, yet much of her life remains shrouded in mystery. Born on the island of Lesbos around 630 BCE, Sappho's work revolutionized lyric poetry, weaving emotions into verses so vivid they still resonate today. But who was Sappho, and why does her legacy endure? Sappho's poetry was deeply personal, often exploring themes of love, desire, and the complexities of human relationships. Unlike the epic tales of gods and heroes that dominated much of ancient literature, Sappho's work focused on the intimate and the everyday. Her verses were not just words but melodies meant to be sung accompanied by the lyre, giving her the title lyric poet. Imagine the atmosphere of her time's small gatherings where her songs would fill the air, evoking laughter, tears, and a shared sense of connection. Her ability to capture raw emotion in such a refined way made her a pioneer in her craft. Yet, Sappho's life is as enigmatic as it is influential. Only fragments of her poetry survive today, preserved in quotes by later writers or on scraps of ancient papyrus. What we know of her comes from these fragments and the stories passed down through generations. She was a woman of her time, living in a society where women's voices were often silenced, yet she carved out a space for herself in the literary world. Her work suggests she led a community of women, possibly teaching them music, poetry, and the arts, a rare glimpse into the intellectual lives of women in antiquity. The mystery surrounding Sappho extends to her personal life. Was she a teacher, a lover, a mother? Scholars have debated these questions for centuries, but what remains undeniable is her impact. Her poetry transcended her era, influencing writers from Ovid to modern poets. Even the word lesbian, derived from her home island of Lesbos, speaks to her enduring cultural significance, though its modern meaning is a much later interpretation. Sappho's story also opens a window into the role of art and literature in ancient societies. In a world where myths and legends dominated the cultural landscape, her work reminds us of the power of individual expression. Poetry wasn't just entertainment, it was a way to explore identity, forge connections, and preserve the essence of human experience. Through her verses, Sappho gave voice to emotions that transcend time and place, proving that art has the power to bridge the gap between past and present. Her legacy is a testament to the enduring power of creativity. Even with so much of her work lost, the fragments that remain continue to inspire, reminding us that the echoes of the past can still shape our understanding of the world. Sappho's story is not just about a poet, it's about the timeless role of art in capturing the human spirit. Scipio Aemilianus might not be a name that immediately comes to mind when thinking of Rome's greatest generals, but his impact on the ancient world was nothing short of monumental. Born into one of Rome's most prestigious families, he was a man of both military genius and political savvy. Yet, despite his extraordinary accomplishments, history often relegates him to the shadows of more famous figures like Julius Caesar or his adoptive grandfather, Scipio Africanus. So, who was Scipio Aemilianus, and why does he deserve a place among the forgotten heroes of antiquity? At the heart of his legacy lies the destruction of Carthage in 146 BCE, a moment that marked the end of a centuries-long rivalry between Rome and its greatest rival. Scipio Aemilianus, leading the Roman forces during the Third Punic War, orchestrated a brutal and decisive siege. The city, once a thriving hub of trade and culture, was reduced to ashes and its people either enslaved or slaughtered. It was a victory that cemented Rome's dominance in the Mediterranean, but it also came at a profound moral cost. Scipio himself is said to have wept as he watched Carthage burn, quoting lines from Homer's Iliad about the inevitable fall of great cities. This moment captures the complexity of the man, a ruthless conqueror, yet one who understood the weight of destruction. But Scipio's story doesn't end on the battlefield. Back in Rome, he was a key figure in the political turmoil of his time. He worked to reform the Roman Republic, advocating for measures to curb corruption and strengthen the state. His efforts, however, often put him at odds with powerful factions within the Senate, and his reforms were met with fierce resistance. Despite his best intentions, Scipio found himself increasingly isolated, a tragic irony for a man who had given so much to his country. His political career, much like his military one, was marked by both triumph and tragedy. So, why is Scipio Aemilianus so often overlooked? Perhaps it's because his achievements are overshadowed by the larger-than-life figures who came before and after him. Or maybe it's because his story is a reminder of the darker side of conquest, the human cost of empire building. As we reflect on his legacy, we're left to ponder the price of power and the complexities of those who wield it. And with that, we turn to the next chapter in our exploration of forgotten heroes and villains, where we'll examine another figure whose story reveals the often overlooked consequences of ambition and conflict. From the sands of Mesopotamia rises the tale of a king whose name echoes through history with both awe and mystery: Nebuchadnezzar II. Known as one of the most powerful rulers of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, his reign was a time of monumental achievements and enduring legends. But who was this enigmatic figure, and why does his story still captivate us today? Nebuchadnezzar was a master builder, a fierce conqueror, and a ruler whose ambitions reshaped the ancient world. Perhaps his most famous legacy is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, often hailed as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Though their existence is still debated among historians, the idea of a lush, terraced garden rising above the desert is a testament to the grandeur he sought to create. It's said these gardens were a gift to his queen, a symbol of love and power that defied the arid landscape. But Nebuchadnezzar's ambitions extended far beyond his capital. His military campaigns brought vast territories under Babylonian control, including the conquest of Jerusalem in 587 BCE. This event, recorded in both biblical and historical accounts, marked a turning point in the ancient Near East. The Babylonian exile that followed reshaped the cultural and religious identity of the Jewish people, leaving a legacy that echoes to this day. Yet, for all his accomplishments, Nebuchadnezzar's story is also shrouded in myth. Some tales speak of his descent into madness, a period where he lived like a beast, driven by divine punishment. This narrative, found in the Book of Daniel, has fueled centuries of speculation about the king's character and the pressures of ruling an empire. Was it a metaphor for the burdens of power, or a cautionary tale about hubris? Nebuchadnezzar's reign offers a window into the grandeur and complexity of ancient empires. His achievements remind us of humanity's capacity for both creation and destruction, for building wonders and waging wars. His legacy is a tapestry of fact and legend, woven together by time, inviting us to explore not just his story, but the world he sought to shape. And as we unravel the threads of his life, we're left with a question: what does it mean to leave a mark on history, and how do we remember those who do? Now picture this: a fierce queen, her hair streaming like fire, standing at the head of an army, rallying her people against the might of an empire. This is Boudica of the Iceni, a name that once struck fear into the hearts of Roman soldiers. While many ancient leaders have faded into obscurity, Boudica's story remains a powerful testament to courage and defiance. She wasn't just a queen, she was a symbol of resistance, a leader who rose from tragedy to challenge one of the greatest powers of her time. Boudica's story begins in what is now modern-day England, where she ruled alongside her husband, King Prasutagus of the Iceni tribe. When Prasutagus died, the Romans saw an opportunity to seize control, ignoring his will, which had left half his kingdom to his daughters and half to Rome. The Romans responded with brutality, flogging Boudica, assaulting her daughters, and plundering the Iceni lands. It was this betrayal and violence that ignited her fury and set her on a path of vengeance. But Boudica was more than just a grieving mother and widow. She was a strategist and a unifier. she rallied not only the Iceni but also neighboring tribes who had suffered under Roman rule. Together, they formed a formidable force, and under her leadership they struck back with a fury that shook the empire. Her army burned Roman settlements to the ground, including Londinium, modern-day London, and Verulamium, leaving a trail of destruction that forced Rome to take notice. What makes Boudica's rebellion so remarkable is not just her tactical prowess but her ability to inspire. She wasn't fighting for power or wealth, she was fighting for justice for her people and for the freedom to live without oppression. Her revolt, though ultimately crushed, left an indelible mark on history. It showed that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit could rise and resist. As we reflect on Boudica's legacy, it's hard not to marvel at the resilience of ancient peoples. Their stories remind us that the fight for dignity and freedom is timeless, echoing through the ages. And as we move forward, we'll explore another figure whose life was shaped by the clash of cultures and the struggle for survival. Moving from the shadows of forgotten heroes to the stark realities of power, we now turn to the story of Agathocles, the tyrant of Syracuse. This Sicilian ruler's ascent to power was anything but ordinary. It was a tale steeped in brutality, strategy, and an unrelenting hunger for control. Born into humble beginnings, Agathocles rose through the ranks of Syracuse's political and military circles, but his path was paved with bloodshed. He didn't just climb the ladder of power, he shattered it, using cunning and violence to secure his dominance. Agathocles' rule began with a coup, a violent overthrow of the existing government that left no room for dissent. Once in power, he wasted no time consolidating his authority, eliminating rivals and silencing opposition with ruthless efficiency. But his ambitions didn't stop at Syracuse. He turned his gaze outward, launching military campaigns across Sicily and even into North Africa, where he challenged the mighty Carthaginians. These campaigns were marked by boldness and brutality, as Agathocles sought to expand his influence and secure his legacy as a conqueror. Yet, his rule wasn't solely defined by violence. Agathocles also implemented reforms aimed at strengthening Syracuse, from restructuring the military to improving infrastructure. Some saw these efforts as evidence of his vision for a stronger, more unified state, while others viewed them as mere tools to maintain his grip on power. This duality lies at the heart of his legacy. Was he a pragmatic leader who used harsh methods to achieve stability, or a tyrant who thrived on fear and oppression? The story of Agathocles offers a fascinating lens through which to examine the nature of tyranny in the ancient world. His rise and reign highlight the fine line between ambition and ruthlessness, and the ways in which power can corrupt even the most capable leaders. While his name may not be as widely remembered as some of his contemporaries, his impact on Sicily and the broader Mediterranean world was undeniable. So, was Agathocles a visionary leader or a brutal despot? The answer, as with so many figures from history, lies somewhere in between. The ancient world was full of adventurers, but few dared to venture into the unknown as boldly as Pythias of Massilia. Born in what is now modern-day Marseille, this Greek explorer set sail in the 4th century BCE, not just to trade or conquer, but to satisfy an insatiable curiosity about the world beyond the Mediterranean. His journey would take him farther north than any Greek before him, into the misty, uncharted waters of the British Isles and perhaps even beyond to the icy edges of the Arctic. Pythias wasn't just a sailor, he was a scientist, an observer of the natural world. He meticulously recorded the tides, the position of the sun, and the length of days as he traveled. His writings, though largely lost to time, suggest he was among the first to describe phenomena like the midnight sun and the polar ice caps, but his journey wasn't without peril. The seas were unforgiving, and the lands he encountered were populated by tribes who viewed him with suspicion. Yet Pythias pressed on, driven by a desire to map the unknown and share his discoveries with the world. What makes Pythias truly remarkable is not just the distances he covered, but the mindset he embodied. In an era when many believed the world ended at the horizon, he dared to challenge those assumptions. His voyages opened up new possibilities for trade, culture, and knowledge, proving that the world was far larger and more complex than anyone had imagined. Reflecting on Pythias's legacy, we're reminded of the timeless spirit of exploration, a spirit that pushes us to venture beyond the familiar, to question the boundaries of what we know. And just as Pythias's journeys inspired those who came after him, his story invites us to consider how the ancient world's thirst for discovery continues to shape our own. Imagine standing at the foot of the towering Alps, watching as a massive army, elephants and all, begins its treacherous climb through snow and ice. This was no ordinary military campaign. It was the daring strategy of Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general whose name struck fear into the hearts of Rome. Hannibal wasn't just a commander, he was a mastermind, a man whose audacity and ingenuity reshaped the art of warfare in the ancient world. Born into a family sworn to oppose Rome, Hannibal carried that mission with him from a young age, inheriting not only his father's hatred for Rome but also his genius for strategy. Hannibal's most famous feat, of course, was his crossing of the Alps in 218 BCE. Picture this: tens of thousands of soldiers, thousands of horses, and 37 elephants navigating narrow, icy paths, all while facing attacks from local tribes and the brutal elements. It was a logistical nightmare, but Hannibal's determination and meticulous planning made it possible. He didn't just cross the Alps to make a statement, he did it to catch Rome off guard, bringing the fight directly to their doorstep. And for a while it worked. His victories at battles like Cannae became legendary, showcasing his ability to outthink and outmaneuver one of the most powerful empires of the time. But here's the twist: despite his brilliance, Hannibal never managed to deliver the final blow to Rome. His campaigns were marked by incredible successes, but they also exposed the limitations of his approach. Rome's resilience and its ability to adapt eventually turned the tide. Hannibal's forces, stretched thin and far from home, struggled to maintain momentum. By the time he faced Scipio Africanus at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE, the tide had turned decisively against him. It was a bitter end for a man who had come so close to altering the course of history. Hannibal's story isn't just about battles and tactics, it's a window into the complexities of ancient warfare. It reveals how even the most brilliant strategies can falter against an opponent's endurance and adaptability. It also highlights the human side of war, the ambition, the risk-taking, and the sheer willpower that drove leaders like Hannibal to achieve the impossible. His legacy endures not just as a military genius, but as a symbol of determination and the high cost of ambition. While many of history's great philosophers like Plato and Aristotle are household names, one of the most influential thinkers of the ancient world often slips through the cracks: Zeno of Citium. Born around 334 BC in Cyprus, Zeno is the man behind Stoicism, a philosophy that has quietly shaped how we think about resilience, ethics, and the human condition for centuries. But why does his name rarely come up in modern conversations about philosophy, and what made his ideas so groundbreaking? Zeno's journey to becoming a philosopher wasn't exactly conventional. Originally a merchant, he lost nearly everything in a shipwreck which brought him to Athens. There, he began studying under the Cynics, a group known for their rejection of material wealth and societal norms. But Zeno didn't stop there. He took those ideas, refined them, and built something entirely new: Stoicism. Named after the Stoa, or painted porch where Zeno taught, this philosophy emphasized self-control, virtue, and living in harmony with nature. It wasn't just about enduring hardship, it was about finding peace and purpose within it. What made Zeno's teaching so revolutionary was their practicality. Unlike some philosophies that dwelled in abstract theories, Stoicism offered tools for everyday life. Zeno taught that happiness comes from within, not from external circumstances. He believed that by mastering our emotions and focusing on what we can control, we can achieve a state of tranquility no matter what life throws at us. This idea resonated deeply with people across the ancient world, from Roman emperors like Marcus Aurelius to everyday citizens struggling with life's challenges. Yet, despite his profound impact, Zeno's legacy is often overshadowed by his more famous successors. Figures like Seneca and Epictetus expanded on his ideas, but it was Zeno who laid the foundation. So why is he so overlooked today? Part of the reason may be that much of his original work has been lost to time. Unlike Aristotle or Plato, whose writings were meticulously preserved, Zeno's teachings survive mainly through the works of others. This has left him in the background, a quiet architect of a philosophy that still resonates with millions. Even so, the principles Zeno championed are timeless. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, Stoicism offers a way to navigate life with clarity and purpose. It's a reminder that even when we can't control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. And perhaps that's why, thousands of years later, Zeno's ideas continue to inspire, proof that the wisdom of the ancients is as relevant today as it was in the bustling streets of Athens. Moving from the grandeur of Egypt to the distant shores of North Africa, we encounter Cleopatra Selene II, a figure whose life was as dramatic as it was consequential. Born to Cleopatra and Mark Antony, two of history's most famous lovers, Selene's story is one of resilience and reinvention in the shadow of her parents' tragic downfall. After the Roman civil wars ended with her parents' defeat and suicide, Selene was taken to Rome as a captive, a child thrust into the heart of her enemy's empire. But her story didn't end there. She would rise from captivity to become a queen in her own right, ruling Mauritania and carrying forward the legacy of her illustrious lineage. In Mauritania, Cleopatra Selene didn't just govern. She transformed the region into a cultural bridge between the Roman world and her Egyptian heritage. She married Juba II, a Numidian king and scholar, and together they fostered a kingdom that blended Roman administration with Egyptian and Berber traditions. Temples to Isis rose alongside Roman forums, and the arts flourished under her patronage. Selene's reign was more than a political endeavor. It was a testament to her determination to honor her parents' memory while carving out her own place in history. Her efforts to preserve her parents' legacy were subtle but profound. She named her son Ptolemy, a clear nod to her Ptolemaic ancestry, and minted coins bearing her mother's image, ensuring that Cleopatra's face and influence endured long after her death. In doing so, Selene became a living link between the fading world of Hellenistic Egypt and the rising power of Rome. Her reign also offers a unique lens through which to view the aftermath of the Roman civil wars, a time when the victors sought to erase the memory of their enemies, and yet, through figures like Selene, those memories persisted. Cleopatra Selene's story is a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, the human spirit can endure and even thrive. She didn't just survive the fall of her parents' empire, she redefined it, proving that legacies aren't just inherited, they're rebuilt. Her life invites us to reflect on the power of resilience and the ways in which history is shaped not just by conquest, but by the quiet, determined efforts of those who refuse to let the past be forgotten. Imagine living in a world where the Earth's shape and size were still shrouded in mystery, where myths and speculations clouded the truth. Now picture a man who dared to measure the impossible. This is the story of Eratosthenes, an ancient scholar whose brilliance illuminated the world of science long before the age of modern technology. Born in the 3rd century BCE in Cyrene, a city in modern-day Libya, Eratosthenes was a polymath whose curiosity knew no bounds. He wasn't just a mathematician or a geographer, he was a thinker who connected the dots between disciplines in ways that were truly ahead of his time. Eratosthenes is perhaps best known for his groundbreaking calculation of the Earth's circumference. Using nothing more than a stick, the sun, and his sharp intellect, he devised a simple yet ingenious method. He noticed that on the summer solstice, the sun cast no shadow in the Egyptian city of Syene, meaning it was directly overhead. But in Alexandria, hundreds of miles to the north, a stick cast a slight shadow. By measuring the angle of that shadow and knowing the distance between the two cities, he calculated the Earth's curvature, and remarkably, his estimate was within a few percentage points of the actual circumference. This feat wasn't just a triumph of mathematics, it was a testament to human ingenuity. But Eratosthenes didn't stop there. He also created the first map of the world that incorporated lines of latitude and longitude, laying the foundation for modern geography. He even coined the term geography itself, meaning earth writing in Greek. His work extended to mathematics, where he devised the sieve of Eratosthenes, a method for identifying prime numbers that's still taught in classrooms today. And yet, despite these monumental contributions, his name often fades into the background of history, overshadowed by figures like Aristotle or Archimedes. Why is that? Perhaps it's because Eratosthenes didn't fit neatly into a single category. He was a jack of all trades in an age that increasingly celebrated specialization. What makes Eratosthenes truly remarkable isn't just his achievements, it's the way he approached knowledge. He saw the world as a puzzle to be solved, a mystery to be unraveled. His legacy reminds us that science isn't just about answers, it's about asking the right questions. And as we marvel at the precision of his calculations, we're left wondering, how many other brilliant minds from the ancient world have been forgotten, their stories lost to time? Eratosthenes' work stands as a bridge between the past and the present, a reminder of the enduring power of curiosity and intellect. Shapur I, a name that might not ring as many bells as Julius Caesar or Alexander the Great, but his impact on the ancient world was nothing short of extraordinary. As the second ruler of the Sasanian Empire, Shapur inherited a kingdom that was already a regional powerhouse, but he didn't just maintain it, he expanded it in ways that left Rome trembling. Known as the King of Kings, Shapur wasn't just a warrior, he was a visionary who reshaped the political and cultural landscape of his time. Shapur's military campaigns were legendary. He didn't just defeat Roman armies, he humiliated them. In two decisive battles at Edessa and Barbalissos, Shapur captured not only territories but also the Roman Emperor Valerian himself. Imagine the shockwaves this sent across the ancient world. A Roman emperor, the symbol of imperial might, brought to his knees by a Persian king. Shapur didn't stop there. He pushed further into Roman territories, sacking cities and leaving a trail of awe and terror in his wake. His victories weren't just about conquest, they were statements. They signaled the rise of a new superpower, one that could stand toe-to-toe with Rome. But Shapur wasn't just a conqueror, he was also a builder, a patron of culture, and a unifier. Under his rule, the Sasanian Empire flourished not just militarily but artistically and intellectually. He commissioned grand architectural projects, including the iconic city of Bishapur, which blended Persian and Roman influences in a way that symbolized the fusion of two great civilizations. Shapur also embraced Zoroastrianism, the ancient religion of Persia, and used it to strengthen his empire's identity. His reign marked a golden age for Persian art, literature, and science, proving that a great leader could wield both the sword and the pen. Yet, Shapur's legacy is more than just a tale of military might and cultural brilliance. His story reveals the complexities of ancient empires, how they rose, how they clashed, and how they influenced one another. Shapur's confrontations with Rome weren't just about territory, they were about ideology, religion, and the very nature of power. In many ways, his reign was a turning point, a moment when the balance of power in the ancient world shifted, and the Sasanian Empire emerged as a force to be reckoned with. So, what can we learn from Shapur I? Perhaps it's that history's greatest leaders are those who understand the delicate balance between conquest and creation. Shapur didn't just build an empire, he built a legacy, one that reminds us of the enduring interplay between power, culture, and the human spirit. And in a world where empires rose and fell like the tides, Shapur's story stands as a testament to the enduring power of vision and ambition. Olympias of Epirus was far more than just the mother of Alexander the Great. She was a force of nature in her own right. Known for her fierce devotion to the cult of Dionysius and her unyielding ambition, Olympias played a pivotal role in shaping the destiny of one of history's most legendary conquerors. Her influence began long before Alexander's rise to power, as she meticulously navigated the treacherous waters of Macedonian politics to secure her son's future. From orchestrating the downfall of rivals to ensuring Alexander's legitimacy as heir, Olympias was a master strategist who wielded power with a ruthless edge. But her story is not just one of triumph. Olympia's life was marked by both brilliance and tragedy. After Alexander's death, her relentless pursuit of power led her into a deadly conflict with the successors of his empire. Her refusal to back down ultimately sealed her fate, and she met a grim end at the hands of her enemies. Yet, even in death, Olympias left an indelible mark on history, a testament to the formidable role women could play in the ancient world. Her legacy forces us to reconsider the often overlooked influence of women in shaping the course of empires. This brings us to a broader question. How did women like Olympias navigate the male-dominated political landscapes of their time? Their stories remind us that power, in all its forms, was not confined to the battlefield or the throne room. It was also wielded in the shadows through alliances, manipulation, and sheer will. And as we move forward, we'll explore another figure who defied the norms of her era, proving that the ancient world was far more complex and fascinating than we often imagine. Now, let's turn to a figure whose words once echoed through the halls of ancient Greece, leaving a legacy that still resonates today. Pindar, often hailed as one of the greatest lyric poets of his time, wasn't just a master of verse, he was a voice that captured the spirit of an era. Born around 518 BC in Thebes, Pindar's poetry was more than art. It was a bridge between the divine and the mortal, a celebration of gods, heroes, and the triumphs of the human spirit. Pindar's work is best known for his odes, particularly the Eponychia, or victory odes, composed to honor athletes who triumphed in the great Panhellenic Games like the Olympics. These weren't just songs of praise, they were intricate tapestries woven with myth, history, and moral reflection. For Pindar, a victory wasn't just about the athlete, it was about the god's favor, the city's pride, and the eternal struggle for glory. His poetry elevated these moments, transforming them into something timeless. Yet, for all his fame, much about Pindar's life remains shrouded in mystery. Unlike some of his contemporaries, he didn't leave behind a detailed autobiography. What we know comes from fragments of his work and scattered references by later writers. Even his physical appearance is a matter of speculation, with some accounts describing him as tall and dignified, others as humble and unassuming. This air of mystery only adds to his allure, making him a figure as enigmatic as the myths he so often invoked. But Pindar's true legacy lies in his ability to reflect the values of his society. In ancient Greece, poetry wasn't just entertainment, it was a vital part of cultural and religious life. Poets like Pindar were seen as intermediaries between the human and the divine, using their craft to explore profound questions about fate, virtue, and the nature of existence. His work reminds us that art has always been a mirror, reflecting the hopes, fears, and aspirations of the people who create it. So, what can we learn from Pindar's story? His life underscores the enduring power of art to shape identity and inspire generations. In a world where the written word was rare, poetry was a way to preserve memory, to honor the past, and to imagine the future. Pindar's odes weren't just for his time, they were for all time, a testament to the timeless connection between creativity and the human experience. And as we piece together the fragments of his life, we're reminded that even the greatest voices from history can leave us with more questions than answers. Now, let's turn our attention to one of history's most brilliant yet underappreciated figures, Belisarius, the Byzantine general whose campaigns reshaped the map of the ancient world. Born in the early 6th century, Belisarius rose from humble beginnings to become the right-hand man of Emperor Justinian, a ruler determined to restore the glory of the Roman Empire. With a mind as sharp as his sword, Belisarius led armies across 3 continents, reclaiming vast territories that had been lost for centuries. His victories in North Africa, Italy, and the Persian frontier were nothing short of astonishing, yet his name often fades into the background of history. Why is that? Belisarius was a master tactician, combining innovative strategies with an uncanny ability to adapt to the battlefield. Whether facing the Vandals in Carthage or the Goths in Italy, he outmaneuvered his enemies with precision and creativity. His use of cavalry, combined with disciplined infantry, set a new standard for military excellence. But his brilliance wasn't just in warfare, it was also in his ability to inspire loyalty among his troops. Unlike many commanders of his time, Belisarius led by example, sharing the hardships of his soldiers and earning their unwavering trust. Yet, despite his achievements, Belisarius often found himself overshadowed by the ambitions of Emperor Justinian. The emperor, while recognizing his general's talents, was also wary of his growing popularity. This complex dynamic between ruler and commander played a significant role in shaping Belisarius' legacy. While Justinian's reign is celebrated for its grand ambitions, it was Belisarius who turned those ambitions into reality, often with limited resources and against overwhelming odds. What's truly remarkable is how Belisarius navigated the treacherous waters of politics and power. He remained fiercely loyal to Justinian, even when the emperor's decisions put him in impossible situations. This loyalty, while admirable, may have also contributed to his relative obscurity in the historical record. Belisarius didn't seek fame or glory for himself. His focus was always on serving the empire. And perhaps that's why his story resonates so deeply today. In a world where leadership is often equated with self-promotion, Belisarius reminds us of the quiet power of humility and dedication. Reflecting on his life, it's impossible not to wonder how history might have been different if his achievements had been given the recognition they deserved. Leadership, as Belisarius demonstrated, is not just about winning battles. It's about navigating challenges with integrity, even when the odds are stacked against you. And as we'll see in the next chapter of Forgotten Heroes and Villains, the challenges of leadership take many forms, shaping the destinies of empires and individuals alike. From the ashes of war, sometimes rises a leader who transforms not only themselves but the very fabric of their empire. Ashoka the Great, the third emperor of the Mauryan dynasty, is one such figure, a ruler whose story is as dramatic as it is profound. Known initially for his ruthless military campaigns, Ashoka's reign took a sharp turn after the bloody conquest of Kalinga, a turning point that reshaped his legacy forever. The Kalinga War was a brutal conflict, one that left tens of thousands dead and countless others displaced. It's said that the sheer scale of suffering he witnessed on the battlefield struck Ashoka to his core. This wasn't just another victory, it was a moment of reckoning. Ashoka, once a fierce warrior king, began to question the cost of his ambition. What followed was a remarkable transformation. He embraced Buddhism, renouncing violence and dedicating his life to promoting peace, compassion, and moral governance. But Ashoka's conversion wasn't just a personal shift, it had far-reaching implications for his empire. He issued a series of edicts carved into rocks and pillars across his vast territory that outlined his principles of ethical rule. These weren't just proclamations of power, they were messages of unity, urging his subjects to live with kindness, respect for all life, and tolerance for different beliefs. Imagine, in a time when empires were often built on fear, Ashoka chose to govern through empathy and moral responsibility. What makes Ashoka's story so compelling is the tension between his past and his transformation. He didn't erase his earlier conquests or pretend they never happened. Instead, he used his experiences to craft a new vision of leadership, one that acknowledged the darkness of war while striving for a brighter future. His legacy is a testament to the complexity of ancient empires where power and morality often collided. Even today, the Ashoka Chakra, a symbol derived from his reign, adorns the flag of modern India, a reminder of his enduring influence. Ashoka's reign invites us to reflect on the dualities of leadership, how a single individual can embody both the capacity for destruction and the potential for redemption. His story isn't just about an ancient king, it's about the choices we make and the legacies we leave behind. And in a world still grappling with the consequences of power, his journey offers timeless lessons on the possibility of change. Artemisia of Caria stands as one of the most intriguing yet underappreciated figures of the ancient world. A queen, a naval commander, and a strategist, Artemisia defied the norms of her time, carving out a legacy that still captivates historians today. As the ruler of Caria, a region in modern-day Turkey, she didn't just govern from afar, she led her forces into battle, fighting alongside the Persian king Xerxes during the Greco-Persian Wars in the 5th century BC. Imagine the scene, a woman commanding warships in an era when female leaders in warfare were almost unheard of. Her presence on the battlefield wasn't just symbolic, it was transformative. Artemisia's tactical brilliance shone during the Battle of Salamis in 480 BCE, where she commanded a fleet of ships against the Greek alliance. Unlike many of Xerxes' commanders who acted rashly, Artemisia demonstrated remarkable foresight. She advised caution and strategic retreat when necessary, though her counsel was often ignored. During the battle, she executed a daring maneuver, faking an attack on her own allies to escape a Greek onslaught. This act of deception not only saved her fleet but also earned her the respect of Xerxes, who reportedly remarked, "My men have become women and my women men." Her ingenuity and courage made her a standout figure in a war dominated by male leaders. Yet, despite her achievements, much of Artemisia's life remains shrouded in mystery. Ancient sources like Herodotus provide glimpses of her story, but they are often tinged with awe and speculation. What drove her to align with Persia? Was it ambition, loyalty, or something more personal? And what became of her after the wars? These questions linger, adding to her enigmatic allure. Her legacy challenges our understanding of gender roles in ancient warfare, reminding us that history is far more complex than the narratives we often inherit. Artemisia's story invites us to reconsider the role of women in ancient conflicts. While many histories focus on the exploits of male warriors, figures like Artemisia remind us that women were not merely bystanders. They were leaders, strategists, and in some cases pivotal players in shaping the course of history. As we move forward, let's explore how other women, often forgotten by time, left their mark on the battlefields of the ancient world. Their stories, though less told, are no less extraordinary. Hiero II of Syracuse stands out as one of history's most fascinating contradictions, a tyrant who brought peace. While the word tyrant often conjures images of ruthless oppressors, Hiero's rule defied expectations. Rising to power in the 3rd century BC, he transformed Syracuse from a city plagued by chaos into a thriving hub of stability and culture. But how did a man labeled a tyrant earn such a legacy? The answer lies in his ability to balance ambition with pragmatism, a rare trait among rulers of his time. Hiero's military campaigns were a cornerstone of his reign. Early on, he secured his position by defeating the Mamertines, a group of mercenaries who had seized control of Messina, a key Sicilian city. This victory not only solidified his authority but also positioned Syracuse as a dominant force in the region. Yet Hiero wasn't just a conqueror, he was a strategist. Recognizing the growing power of Rome, he wisely allied with the rising empire, ensuring Syracuse's protection while maintaining a degree of independence. This diplomatic foresight allowed him to focus on internal reforms rather than constant warfare. At home, Hiero's reforms were nothing short of transformative. He restructured Syracuse's economy, introducing fair taxation and land redistribution policies that alleviated poverty and curbed social unrest. Under his rule, the city flourished, becoming a beacon of prosperity in the ancient Mediterranean. But Hiero's vision extended beyond economics. He was a passionate patron of the arts and sciences, attracting intellectuals like the famed mathematician Archimedes to his court. This cultural renaissance left an indelible mark on Syracuse, elevating it to a center of learning and innovation. Yet Hiero's legacy remains a subject of debate. Was he a benevolent ruler who used his power for the greater good? Or was he simply a shrewd politician masking his authoritarian tendencies? His title as tyrant complicates the narrative. In ancient Greece, a tyrant wasn't always a villain. It simply referred to someone who seized power outside traditional means. Hiero's rule challenges us to rethink what tyranny meant in the ancient world. Did the ends justify the means? His reign suggests that even a tyrant could be a force for stability and progress. What makes Hiero's story particularly compelling is its relevance to broader questions about power and governance. His ability to navigate the complexities of leadership, balancing military might with cultural patronage and diplomacy with reform, offers timeless lessons. As we explore his life, we're reminded that history is rarely black and white. Hiero II of Syracuse wasn't just a tyrant, he was a paradox, a ruler whose legacy continues to spark debate and reflection. Eudoxus of Cyzicus wasn't just an explorer, he was a dreamer. In the 2nd century before the Common Era, when the world was still a patchwork of uncharted seas and distant lands, Eudoxus set out on a daring quest to find a sea route to India. For centuries, the overland Silk Road had been the primary path for trade, but Eudoxus believed there was another way, a faster, more direct route across the open waters. His journeys were not just about commerce, they were about pushing the boundaries of what was known and venturing into the unknown, but the seas were unforgiving. Eudoxus faced treacherous storms, unpredictable winds, and the constant threat of running aground on unfamiliar shores. His first voyage, funded by the Egyptian king Ptolemy VIII, took him down the Red Sea and into the Indian Ocean. It was a monumental achievement, one of the earliest recorded attempts to connect the Mediterranean world with India by sea. Yet, despite his success, Eudoxus wasn't satisfied. He believed there was an even better route, one that would bypass the Red Sea entirely. His second voyage was even bolder. This time, he sailed around the southern tip of Africa, a feat that wouldn't be repeated for centuries. But the journey was fraught with danger. Supplies ran low, crew morale wavered, and the coastline offered little refuge. While some accounts suggest he reached India, others claim he turned back, defeated by the immense challenges. Regardless of the outcome, Eudoxus's voyages were groundbreaking. They proved that the world was far larger and more interconnected than anyone had imagined. What's truly remarkable about Eudoxus is his relentless spirit of exploration. In an age when maps were rudimentary and navigation was more art than science, he dared to dream of new horizons. His efforts laid the groundwork for future explorers, inspiring generations to challenge the limits of the known world. Eudoxus reminds us that progress often begins with a single question: what lies beyond the horizon? And as we reflect on the courage of ancient explorers like Eudoxus, we can't help but marvel at how their journeys shaped the world we know today. Their stories are a testament to human curiosity and the unyielding desire to discover what lies beyond the edge of the map. Mithridates VI of Pontus, a name that struck fear into the heart of Rome, was no ordinary king. Known as one of the most formidable adversaries Rome ever faced, his story is a gripping tale of ambition, cunning, and resilience. Rising to power in the 1st century before the Common Era, Mithridates ruled the Kingdom of Pontus, a region nestled along the Black Sea. But what set him apart wasn't just his military prowess, it was his unyielding determination to resist Roman domination at all costs. Mithridates was a master strategist, and his campaigns against Rome were legendary. He didn't just fight battles, he waged wars of attrition, exploiting Rome's weaknesses and rallying neighboring kingdoms to his cause. One of his most infamous tactics was his use of poison, not just as a weapon, but as a tool of fear. Mithridates was said to have developed a personal immunity to toxins by ingesting small doses over time, earning him the nickname the Poison King. He even orchestrated a mass poisoning of Roman officials and citizens in a single night, an event that sent shockwaves through the empire. But Mithridates wasn't just a ruthless general, he was also a survivor. Despite facing overwhelming odds, he managed to evade capture time and time again, even after suffering devastating defeats. His ability to adapt and regroup made him a persistent thorn in Rome's side. Yet his downfall was as dramatic as his rise. After decades of conflict, he was ultimately betrayed by his own son, forced to take his own life rather than fall into Roman hands. His death marked the end of an era, but his legacy as a symbol of resistance endured. Mithridates' story offers a fascinating glimpse into the complexities of ancient warfare. It wasn't just about armies clashing on the battlefield. It was about strategy, psychology, and the lengths to which leaders would go to protect their people or their power. His defiance against Rome reminds us that history is often shaped by those who refuse to bow, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Diogenes of Sinope was no ordinary philosopher. In fact, he was anything but ordinary. Known for his radical lifestyle and unapologetic disdain for societal conventions, Diogenes lived in a clay jar, wandered the streets with a lantern in broad daylight, and famously told Alexander the Great to step aside because he was blocking the sun. His philosophy, rooted in cynicism, was as much about his actions as his words. Diogenes believed that true happiness could only be achieved by rejecting materialism, vanity, and the artificial constraints of society. He wasn't just a thinker, he was a living challenge to the status quo. But why has Diogenes, one of the most colorful figures of ancient philosophy, been so often overlooked? Part of the answer lies in his refusal to conform. While other philosophers like Plato and Aristotle built schools and wrote treatises, Diogenes preferred to teach through his behavior, often mocking the intellectual elite. His lack of written works meant his ideas were passed down through anecdotes and second-hand accounts, making it harder for later generations to fully grasp his philosophy. Yet his influence is undeniable. The Stoics, for example, admired his self-sufficiency and resilience, while modern thinkers see him as an early advocate for living authentically, free from societal expectations. Diogenes' legacy is a reminder that philosophy isn't just about abstract ideas, it's about how we live. His radical approach forces us to question what we value and why. In a world increasingly driven by consumerism and social validation, his teachings feel more relevant than ever. And as we move forward, it's worth reflecting on how the voices of ancient philosophers like Diogenes continue to echo through time, challenging us to think differently about our lives and the world around us. Moving from the shadows of forgotten warriors and rulers, we arrive at the story of a woman whose brilliance and ambition left an indelible mark on the ancient world. Arsinoe II, a Ptolemaic queen whose life was as dramatic as it was influential. Born into one of the most powerful dynasties of the Hellenistic era, Arsinoe wasn't just a queen, she was a strategist, a patron of the arts, and a figure who redefined what it meant to wield power in a world dominated by men. Her story begins with her first marriage to Lysimachus, the ruler of Thrace, a union that positioned her as a key player in the turbulent politics of the time. But it was her second marriage to her own brother, Ptolemy II, that truly cemented her legacy. While such a union might seem shocking today, it was a calculated move to consolidate power and stabilize the Ptolemaic dynasty. Together, they transformed Egypt into a cultural powerhouse, fostering advancements in science, art, and literature that echoed across the Mediterranean. Yet, Arsinoe's life wasn't just about political alliances. She was a trailblazer in her own right. She became one of the first women in history to be deified in her lifetime, a testament to her influence and the reverence she commanded. Temples were built in her honor, and her image was minted on coins, spreading her legacy far beyond Egypt's borders. But beneath the grandeur lies a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries. Why did Arsinoe vanish from historical records so abruptly? Was it political intrigue, or did a brother-husband grow wary of her growing power? The truth remains elusive, but what's undeniable is the mark she left on history. Arsinoe's story offers a glimpse into the complex challenges faced by women in ancient politics, navigating a world where power was precarious. Alliances were fragile, and survival often depended on cunning and resilience. Her life reminds us that even in an era dominated by men, women like Arsinoe could rise to shape empires and leave a legacy that endures for millennia. And as we peel back the layers of her story, we're left wondering what other forgotten queens and leaders are waiting to be rediscovered. Imagine a world where the principles of calculus, the laws of buoyancy, and even the concept of levers were still mysteries. That was the reality before Archimedes, one of the greatest minds of the ancient world, stepped onto the stage. Born in the bustling city of Syracuse around 287 BCE, Archimedes wasn't just a mathematician or an engineer. He was a visionary who laid the groundwork for modern science. Yet, despite his groundbreaking contributions, his name often gets overshadowed by later figures in history. Today, let's shine a light on this forgotten hero of the ancient world and explore how his genius continues to shape our lives. Archimedes was a master of problem solving, and his discoveries spanned fields that still define science today. In mathematics, he developed methods to calculate areas and volumes of complex shapes, laying the foundation for integral calculus centuries before it was formally invented. His work on the value of pi, the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, was so precise that it remained unmatched for over 1,000 years. And then there was his famous Eureka moment where he uncovered the principle of buoyancy while stepping into a bath. This discovery not only solved a problem for his king, but also gave us Archimedes' principle, a cornerstone of fluid mechanics. But his brilliance didn't stop at theory. Archimedes was also a prolific inventor, creating machines that seemed almost magical for their time. The Archimedes screw, a device for lifting water, is still used in some parts of the world today. During the Roman siege of Syracuse, he designed war machines like the infamous Claw of Archimedes that held off entire armies. His ability to blend abstract thought with practical engineering made him a true Renaissance man, millennia before the Renaissance even began. So why is Archimedes often overlooked? Part of the reason lies in the nature of his work. Unlike philosophers like Aristotle or military leaders like Alexander the Great, Archimedes' contributions were less about storytelling and more about raw, unglamorous problem-solving. His writings, though revolutionary, were dense and technical, making them less accessible to later generations. And yet, his influence is everywhere, from the way we design buildings to the way we understand the natural world. As we reflect on Archimedes' legacy, it's clear that the ancient world was far more advanced than we often give it credit for. His achievements remind us that innovation isn't just about flashy breakthroughs, but also about the quiet, persistent work of understanding the world around us. And with that in mind, let's turn our attention to another figure whose brilliance has been lost in the shadows of time. Picture this, a leader so feared that his very name became synonymous with terror and destruction. Attila the Hun, often called the Scourge of God, carved his name into the annals of history not through diplomacy or cultural achievements, but through sheer force and an unparalleled ability to strike fear into the hearts of his enemies. Rising to power in the early 5th century, Attila led his nomadic people, the Huns, on a series of campaigns that shook the foundations of the Roman Empire and left an indelible mark on Europe. But who was this enigmatic figure, and what drove him to become one of history's most infamous conquerors? Attila's reign was defined by his relentless military campaigns, which stretched from the steppes of Central Asia to the heart of Western Europe. Unlike many leaders of his time, Attila didn't rely on massive armies or advanced technology. Instead, his success came from his mastery of mobility, surprise, and psychological warfare. The Huns were expert horsemen, able to strike swiftly and disappear before their enemies could mount a defense. This hit-and-run strategy not only demoralized opposing forces, but also allowed Attila to dominate vast territories with remarkable efficiency. His most famous campaigns targeted the Eastern and Western Roman empires, where he extracted staggering amounts of gold in tribute, leaving the once mighty Romans scrambling to appease him. But Attila was more than just a ruthless warlord. His leadership style was a fascinating blend of brutality and pragmatism. He ruled through a combination of charisma and fear, uniting the often fractious Hun tribes under his banner and inspiring loyalty among his followers. At the same time, he wasn't afraid to negotiate when it suited his purposes, using diplomacy to exploit divisions within the Roman Empire. This ability to adapt, whether through force or cunning, made him a formidable adversary and a master of survival in the turbulent world of late antiquity. Attila's legacy, however, is far more complex than the barbarian label often attached to him. While his invasions brought destruction, they also played a role in shaping the future of Europe. The pressure he exerted on the Roman Empire contributed to its eventual decline, paving the way for the rise of medieval kingdoms. His story also serves as a reminder of the fluidity of ancient empires, where power shifted rapidly and alliances were as fragile as they were strategic. Attila may have been a conqueror, but he was also a product of his time, a time when survival often depended on one's ability to outthink and outmaneuver the competition. So, what can we learn from Attila the Hun? His life challenges us to look beyond the surface of history's so-called villains and consider the circumstances that shaped them. In a world where empires rose and fell with startling speed, Attila's story is a testament to the enduring human drive for power, survival, and legacy. And while his name may evoke fear, it also invites us to explore the complexities of a past where the line between hero and villain was often blurred. Theodora of Byzantium was no ordinary queen. Born into poverty, she began her life as the daughter of a bear keeper in the Hippodrome, a world far removed from the gilded halls of power. Yet, through sheer determination and cunning, she rose to become one of the most influential figures in Byzantine history, a woman whose legacy still echoes through the centuries. Her story isn't just about power, it's about resilience, strategy, and an unyielding will to reshape the world around her. As Empress, Theodora was far more than Justinian's consort. She was his equal in many ways, wielding immense influence over political and religious policies. One of her most significant contributions was her role in the Nika riots, a violent uprising that nearly toppled Justinian's rule. While others urged retreat, Theodora stood firm, delivering a speech that galvanized her husband to stay and fight. Her resolve saved the empire, cementing her reputation as a leader who could face chaos head-on and emerge victorious. But Theodora's impact went beyond crisis management. She was a champion of women's rights, pushing for laws that protected women from exploitation and granted them greater autonomy in marriage and divorce. Her reforms were groundbreaking for their time, challenging the deeply entrenched inequalities of Byzantine society. She also used her influence to support marginalized groups, including former prostitutes, ensuring they had opportunities to rebuild their lives. Her partnership with Justinian was a defining feature of her reign. Together, they transformed Byzantium, commissioning architectural marvels like the Hagia Sophia and enacting sweeping legal reforms through the Justinian Code. Yet, it's impossible to separate Justinian's achievements from Theodora's influence. She was the force behind the throne, shaping policies and decisions that would leave a lasting mark on the empire. Theodora's story invites us to reconsider the role of women in ancient politics. Often overshadowed by their male counterparts, women like Theodora wielded power in ways that were both subtle and profound. Their contributions remind us that history is not just a tale of kings and generals, but also of queens and empresses who defied expectations to leave their mark on the world. Now, let's turn our attention to one of ancient Rome's most enigmatic figures, a man whose words have echoed through centuries, yet whose life took a dramatic and mysterious turn. Meet Ovid, the Roman poet whose brilliance with words was matched only by the intrigue surrounding his exile. Born in 43 BC, Ovid rose to fame as one of the most celebrated poets of his time, crafting works that ranged from playful love poems to grand mythological epics. But his story is not just one of literary genius, it's also a tale of political intrigue, personal downfall, and the enduring power of art in the face of adversity. Ovid's most famous works, like Metamorphoses and Ars Amatoria, were groundbreaking in their time. Metamorphoses, a sprawling collection of myths and transformations, became a cornerstone of Western literature, influencing writers and artists for generations. Meanwhile, Ars Amatoria, or the art of love, offered witty and sometimes scandalous advice on romance, earning him both admiration and notoriety. But it was this very notoriety that may have played a role in his sudden downfall. In 8 CE, at the height of his career, Ovid was abruptly exiled to the remote Black Sea port of Tomis by Emperor Augustus. The reasons for this banishment remain shrouded in mystery. Ovid himself claimed it was due to a poem and a mistake, likely referencing Ars Amatoria, which clashed with Augustus's moral reforms and some unknown personal indiscretion. Yet, despite being far from Rome, Ovid continued to write, pouring his heart into letters and poems that lamented his exile and pleaded for his return. What makes Ovid's story so compelling is how it reflects the delicate relationship between art and power in ancient societies. His works were not just entertainment, they were a mirror to the values, conflicts, and aspirations of his time. Through his poetry, we catch glimpses of a world where literature could both celebrate and challenge the status quo, where words held the power to enchant, provoke, and even endanger their creator. Ovid's legacy is a testament to the resilience of art. Even in exile, his voice never faded. His works survived, transcending the boundaries of time and place to inspire countless readers. And while the mystery of his banishment may never be fully solved, it serves as a poignant reminder of how art can endure even when its creator is silenced. Through Ovid, we see not just the story of a poet, but the enduring power of storytelling itself. Among the forgotten heroes of the ancient world, few figures are as fascinating or as overlooked as Flavius Aetius, the Roman general who stood as the last great defender of the Western Roman Empire. Known as the last of the Romans, Aetius was a master strategist and a political survivor in an era when both qualities were in dangerously short supply. His story is one of resilience, cunning, and a relentless fight to preserve a crumbling empire against overwhelming odds. But why, despite his monumental achievements, does Aetius often fade into the shadows of history, overshadowed by the likes of Caesar or even the very enemies he defeated? Aetius rose to prominence during a time of chaos. The Western Roman Empire in the 5th century was a shadow of its former glory, fractured by internal strife and external threats. Yet, Aetius managed to hold the line against one of the most feared invaders of the ancient world, Attila the Hun. At the Battle of the Catalaunian Plains in 451, Aetius led a coalition of Roman and barbarian forces to a decisive victory, halting Attila's advance and buying the empire a brief but crucial reprieve. This wasn't just a military triumph. It was a testament to Aetius's ability to unite fractious allies under a common cause, a skill that set him apart from his contemporaries. But Aetius's brilliance wasn't confined to the battlefield. He was also a shrewd political operator, navigating the treacherous waters of imperial politics with remarkable finesse. At a time when emperors were often puppets of powerful generals, Aetius managed to maintain his influence through alliances, marriages, and calculated diplomacy. He understood that survival in the late Roman Empire required more than just military might. It demanded a keen understanding of power dynamics and the ability to adapt to shifting loyalties. So why is Aetius's legacy so often overlooked? Part of the answer lies in the nature of his era. The Western Empire was in its twilight years, and even Aetius's victories couldn't reverse its decline. His story is one of a man fighting a losing battle, a hero who could only delay the inevitable. Additionally, his assassination in 454, ordered by Emperor Valentinian III, whom Aetius had served loyally, cut short any chance of solidifying his legacy. History often remembers those who rise in times of triumph, not those who struggle against the tides of collapse. Reflecting on Aetius's life, we're reminded of the immense challenges faced by leaders in a declining empire. How do you inspire loyalty when the system itself is unraveling? How do you balance military strategy with political survival? These are questions that resonate far beyond the ancient world, offering timeless lessons in leadership and resilience. Aetius may not have saved the Western Empire, but his story remains a powerful reminder of what it means to fight against the odds, even when the odds seem insurmountable. As we come to the end of this journey through the shadows of the past, let's take a moment to reflect on the extraordinary figures we've uncovered, heroes and villains whose stories have long been buried beneath the sands of time. From the cunning strategists who shaped empires to the unsung champions who defied overwhelming odds, each of these individuals reminds us that history is far more than a collection of dates and events. It's a tapestry of human ambition, courage, and sometimes even cruelty woven together by the choices people made in moments that defined their lives and the world around them. What makes these forgotten figures so compelling isn't just their achievements or misdeeds, but the way their stories reveal the timeless complexities of human nature. They show us how power can both elevate and corrupt, how loyalty can inspire greatness or lead to ruin, and how the passage of time can turn legends into footnotes. Their lives remind us that history isn't just about the victors or the infamous, it's also about those who slipped through the cracks, yet still left an indelible mark on the world. But why does it matter to remember them? Because these stories are more than relics of the past, they are mirrors reflecting who we are and what we might become. By uncovering these forgotten narratives, we gain a deeper understanding of the forces that have shaped our world and the lessons we can carry forward. And perhaps in remembering these figures, we can find inspiration to face our own challenges with the same resilience, ingenuity, or even humility they once displayed. Now it's your turn to dive deeper. Have a favorite figure from this list, or maybe you've come across another forgotten hero or villain from history who deserves their moment in the spotlight. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation alive and discover even more hidden stories together. Before we go, let's leave you with this thought. History isn't just something we study, it's something we live. As the ancient Greek historian Thucydides once said, "The secret to happiness is freedom, and the secret to freedom is courage." Whether it's the courage to fight for what's right, to question the status quo, or to learn from the mistakes of the past, these forgotten figures remind us that the choices we make today will echo far beyond our own lifetimes. So, as you step away from this video, take a moment to consider how their stories might inspire you to leave your own mark on history. After all, the past is never truly forgotten, it's just waiting for someone to uncover it.